Good morning, everybody. It's Monday morning, and we started this series last week on growth by subtraction. And my mama always said, clean up your plate. And we're not really done with that list of things that we need to get rid of in our lives. Paul makes that list in Galatians chapter 5. And, it's an interesting list, but it's kind of all those negatives that we need to get out of our lives. And today I want us just to look at about four more of these that are in that list because I think they're important. At this point, it seems like these works of the flesh, as Paul calls them, or the works of the sinful nature, begin to point to the importance of unity and the danger of division in the church, and just tells believers that they need to get rid of these things. Now, I could see that as particularly important because most of these early believers were meeting in houses, in house churches, meeting together, and anytime there was any disunity, I'm sure it was felt within that small household setting. So I want us to look at about four of these today that I think are helpful for us to also remember in our own lives, in our own churches, in whatever we're doing. But I think it's something that we probably need to get rid of. The first of these that Paul mentions in that list is selfish ambition. It's really that desire for power or authority. And, if you have this brand new church that's just getting started and people are meeting, one of the temptations is for people to say, hey, I'm going to be the one in charge. And there can be a grasping for power, a seeking for authority. And so Paul immediately warns against that because he reminds us that Jesus said we are to lead as servants, okay? And that there's a particular style of leadership within the Christian community. So he says, avoid the idea of selfish ambition. But one of the other things that Paul lists there is this idea of dissensions. Now, the word that Paul uses literally means a standing apart. And it's the idea of a delight in creating divisions. Now, maybe that goes back to the person who wanted to climb to the top, that the way to do that is to create a division within that church. Now, some people might say that's part of what's going on in our own society right now, that we're being subdivided and we're creating this unhealthy environment. But as Christians, we need to be ones who are not creating that division, but we're people who are creating a healing of that division. Now, the third thing that Paul lists in there is the idea of factions. The word that he uses there, we use for our word heresy. And we see it as kind of a negative thing, but it has that point in the original language. But it's the idea of hating someone merely for what they believe, and it's identifying them as an enemy simply because their ideas disagree with yours. And so again, it's sort of a divisive thing that attacks a person for what they believe. Now, there's one last work of the flesh that is listed, and that's the work of envy. And this idea of envy is really being embittered or hating someone just because of their good fortune. Now, one of the things that we see is this is a little different from the earlier work of the flesh that was called jealousy that we looked at a few days ago. But the distinction between these is really jealousy is a jealousy for what someone has that you want. It's more in the area of possessions. But when we look at envy kind of goes a little deeper than jealousy, because it's sort of an envy of the success of that other person. And it's more not targeted, I would say it's not as targeted on what they have, but on who they are. And so we can identify people as enemies simply because of their success. And that also can become horribly dividing within the body of Christ. So these are sort of relational works of the flesh that can really be destructive. And I want you to think about these today and look at your own life. Do you find that you have a selfish authority or selfish ambition? Are you creating dissensions? Are you encouraging factions? And do you have some of this envy of the success of other people around you? Those are good things to get rid of. So do some growth by subtraction, and maybe you want to focus on these 4 today. Take a good look at your life and toss out the garbage, okay? Anyway, have a good day. Bye for now. God bless.